over here.
Good morning, Mr. Beck. I'm Serena. I have a question for you. Thank you for your comments on GU. I have a question on the recent monetary policy from ECB, the quantitative easing policy from ECB, the 60 billion euro bond buying program, and right now the German bonds 10 years below zero interest. So from your point of view, how do you think that will impact the growth of EU and Europe as a whole? Does it make Europe an attractive market to invest? Thank you.
As far as I could understood, you're talking about TTIP, yeah, and the EU, or I didn't get it right.
European Central Banks.
The European Central Bank.
Yes.
And the question, please, again.
How the quantitative easing policy, they are buying 60 billion euros of government bonds,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
to pump up the assets and the market price.
I'm sorry, but I'm not a financial guy. But my point of view is this was done by the Fed too here in the US.
Correct.
So those specialists think they do the right thing. I'm not sure if it is. Yeah. Anyway, I think we got too much money on the road. Too much money on the road. Because the money on the road is just not backed up with any, what it's called, any value. It's just paper. So it's going to be a big problem. I hope specialists can solve it. Does it help? I'm not a specialist in financial things. Okay.
Jackson Koo of AT&T. Mr. Lynch, you mentioned that the labor dispute in West Coast ports have provided opportunity for growth in the GPA. What are the things that the GPA were doing correctly that you avoided such pitfalls?
That's a good question, and I think it's a couple things. I did say the labor piece. It's also the congestion that's in the West Coast even before the labor issue, arose. But what the GPA has done and continues to do is, and one of the reasons I joined the GPA, I had been in the private sector for about 23 years working for private operators. And during the recession, the GPA was pouring investments in, continuing to buy cranes, invest in creating capacity and opportunity for folks who do business with us. And most, if not all, terminal operators, especially the one I have been working for, pulled back and held off on investing. And we're paying for, as a country, we're paying for that now because we don't have the infrastructure and the capacity to handle the significant growth that's thrust upon us. So I think that's probably the key difference. And we've been just kind of telling folks that our doors are open for business and continue to be.
Let me just say that there's a question back there. It's interesting to note in terms of this focus on building strategic partnerships that we've covered the range from the individual, the personal relationships, but also the policies of country, be they financial, and the strategic insight that a company may have to be investing at precisely what looks like the worst time, but in fact, strategically is the best time to be doing that. It's a great point. Back there, yes, please.
My question is for Mr. Lynch. With your recent partnerships with the Asian regions, I was wondering if you have Asian language speakers on your staff at the GPA.
Yes, we have them located in the countries. So we have folks in Shanghai, in Korea, and I think I have it on the slide in there. But look, agents and/or direct employees located in these locations. Not necessarily here in Georgia. That doesn't give us a lot.
I guess I have a second part to that question. Would you ever consider, backing like local language programs to kind of prepare for partnerships with Asia, with local talent?
At Kennesaw State University. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, we're investing in education. We have a great internship program every summer with students from all over Georgia. So we're always willing to look at it.
Thank you.
Next question. Over here.
Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your insight, quite diverse insight in sectors. I have actually two questions for you. The first one is in regards to the Trans-Pacific Partnership that the Honorable Council mentioned earlier. Whether that is, as you know, that's in the works with the Obama administration working on that trade policy. If that's on your radar at all, and whether you view that to be substantial impact to your business or sector, positive or negative. Then my second question is in regards to education. As an educator, we like to produce workforce, next generation of workers, to be as conducive to the global economy, international as possible. Do you view that there are certain skill sets that are deficient currently that we ought to embrace and train our students? So please, any of you answer either question. We appreciate it.
Yeah, me personally, it was not on my radar, but a few things that really resonated, particularly with respect to Korea. I don't believe the U.S. has a better friend in Asia than Korea and the Korean community, and it goes back decades and decades. And if you look at least AT&T as a technology company, Korea is a very important trade partner. So whether it's LG or Samsung, and there's a tremendous amount of growth that's occurring. We're moving to very high bandwidth, high speed applications. So AT&T is starting to launch. When we launched Gigapower, so Gigapower, this is very, very high speed internet in places like Atlanta, Texas, California. That has an impact in Korea because it's driving 4K televisions, it's driving devices. So our relationship with Korea and Korean companies is very, very significant.
Just quickly on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In terms of opportunities that are going to arise from the agreement, obviously you're reducing trade barriers across these countries, and also with the U.S. You're going to see cross-border flows of goods and services increase. From an investment angle, I think there's a lot of opportunities to support banks when it comes to trade finance transactions. So if you're actually providing the liquidity for these companies to export or import their goods. But along with that, I'm sure there's a lot of investment opportunities that will arise just because of the sort of cross-border movement of goods and services. But in terms of what is actually included in the agreement at the moment, I haven't read it, and it hasn't been approved yet, so we're all crossing our fingers at the moment.
I will say that wasn't on my radar, but the FTA absolutely was, and we have seen incredible growth with Korea as a result of that. So that was a welcome addition. And then on the I think you asked about education and jobs. I think Georgia especially has a fantastic program, college program. One of the areas, and I think this is a common theme throughout the United States right now, that we're lacking is the trades. We're really struggling to find those electricians and guys at this and gals at this level that can come in and replace folks that are in that retirement mode. And it's an area of, I don't want to say it's grave concern, but it's an area of concern, and certainly we encourage, we're thinking about having co-op programs at the GPA to help to ensure that we have the ability to fill those positions as we grow.
Just over here.
This question is for Mr. Wilson. With the Internet of Things, how do you balance people's concern for privacy, with their desire for privacy, with the AT&T's desire to know more about their consumers, with the oncoming Internet of Things?
Yeah, very carefully. Privacy and security, they're exceedingly important. And, one of the challenges is that people define privacy differently. I have lot of friends that they spend a lot of time, on Facebook and Twitter, and they're always posting things, and you'll ask them, how important is privacy and security to you? And they'll say, oh, it's very important. I'm like, well, you just told everyone that you're not even at home, you're on vacation in Florida. So, for me, when I think about privacy and security, that's like I become a hermit somewhere in Alaska. I want to get off the grid. So I'm not answering your question specifically, but I can tell you it's a difficult balancing act. It forces companies like AT&T and all the companies we support to go and look differently at our entire business, all of our business processes, to making sure that information, consumer protection, protected information is highly, highly secure. So this is not going away. And one last thing is, we have a group at AT&T called the ABAC, which is the AT&T Business Advisory Council, and it's largely CTOs and CIOs that are on that board, and think, very, very large companies. And you ask anyone around the room, what's your number one concern? They will all tell you it's security and privacy, and it's because it's not like, it can come from the four guys in the garage, but a lot of this is very, very organized. In some cases, it's state-sponsored. So very carefully and very seriously.
Thank you. Next question. This is the chance. Right here.
Just a brief question regarding the OPIC, So you have the U.S. Exim Bank here, so it's kind of export credit agency. So OPIC, how different from U.S. Exim Bank?
Is there anybody from the Export-Import Bank here? No? So, actually, we get that question a lot. It's really in the name. So if you think about opaque overseas private investment corporations, we support investment in emerging markets. The Export-Import Bank supports trade going from U.S. to emerging markets with a range of products, right? So it's investment versus trade facilitation, and that's the crux of it.
Thank you. Back there. If you'd like the air traffic control.
I am from Appetite for Humanity. Since this session has been moderated by the Humanities and Social Sciences, this question comes to AT&T and the Port Authority. Since you're investing in Asia, would you also be looking forward for community and social investments in Asia in your business in Asia Pacific?
AT&T, the way we invest and call it social community, it would be indirect, but with very, very direct benefits. So if you take Internet of Things as an example, and I'll just give you the example of a connected car. And we're all hearing the buzz about semi-autonomous cars and autonomously driving vehicles. And 90% of accidents are caused by human error. So when we build platforms, and this becomes very global, and you have a car that's not just connected to the internet, but then it also becomes connected to other vehicles, it becomes connected to parking meters and street lights, it has tremendous social benefits. And I could give many, many examples. mHealth, there's hundreds, if not thousands of examples of how these applications are improving people's life. It's making education a lot more affordable. You look at Udacity as a great example. I might have mentioned Sebastian Thrun. So programs like MOOC programs that are bringing down the cost of education, and they're taking the distribution model and they're blowing it way, way up. So that's really, of course, we're a company that, we seek to make money for our shareholders, but one of the great pleasures of my job is the social benefit that comes with it. So,
I think on the GPA side, we take pride in being good corporate citizens. Our focus is really Georgia. We're a small organization, and we touch the entire world, though. But we don't have a great presence in those countries our presence is here, and that's the community that we support typically.
Thank you. Next question. In the back there.
Thank you. I'm just curious to know the panel's opinion, or Sarah and gentleman from OPIC, and perhaps Mr. Beck in this case, about the new Asian Infrastructure Bank being led by China. What is your thought on how that's going to impact what we're talking about as far as this USA-Asia partnership? And also for Mr. Beck, perhaps, the European countries have signed on to that, Japan has not. But I'm just wondering, what are your macro thoughts on how that might impact what we're talking about here as far as USA-Asia partnership?
So the question being, would there be a negative or a positive impact of that on the U.S. relationships?
That's correct. Yeah, well, I'm just, on a macro level, everyone's trying to read the tea leaves, so to speak, as to what this will mean, especially vis-a-vis the countering the traditional world bank that we've all come to know. So especially since the U.S. is conspicuously not part of this, I'm wondering what the panel thinks, and certainly from Mr. Beck's perspective, since Europe is signing on to this, what they think and how they view this as future U.S.-Asia economic ties.
I'm trapped once again. It is not my issue. With my first words, I tried to show you that I'm no longer in the business, even not in the financial business. So I have to think about if there's any chance to give my opinion. But these things are so special, and I'm just staying away from that. The only thing I can tell you is what I mentioned. There's too much money in the world. And I remember my dad playing with me cards. And one of the games was to put cards and stack them up to a tower. And this was a very, very instable game. So it happened very often that it just fell down. And that's a problem we're facing with our money policy all over the world. So it's just a feeling that this will not go on like this, that there will be some, what's called, waking up in that area. So nevertheless, industry has to move forward, also the financial industry. We have to invest, we have to go forward. But my personal opinion and my dedication is no longer in this area, and I just try to pick up what was said about education. That we say one of the most important investment should be the investment in human capital. Should be to try all over the world to improve our education, to put more money in this. This will drive our world in future. And if we are waiting too long, it's getting more and more costly. And that's just a picture all over the world. It happens to me that I go to South Korea or other places in the world, and when I'm discussing at the universities with the academic group, we all understand that there is a way to move forward, to improve. The foundation is putting every money that it can into education, into meeting people. Sorry for not giving you a very precise and direct answer, but I'm not so familiar with this stuff. You wait.
You know, the infrastructure gap, as I noted in the presentation, is massive across the Asia-Pacific region in a number of different areas. You know, whether it's healthcare infrastructure, education infrastructure, power projects, you name it. I mean, there's a huge need for it. What's missing, though, is actual projects. I mean, you can set up a number of development banks and have local banks and investment funds, but if you don't have bankable projects that are coming to the table that these platforms or financial institutions want to invest in, then you know it's really useless. In terms of sort of the political elements of the development of the Asian infrastructure investment banks, more a question for the State Department and how they see it, not really open. But at the ground level, the need is massive, but the banking projects are still minimal, and that's what we really need to focus on.
So in the interest of ending on time, I know we got started a little bit late, but what I'd like to do, obviously we're going to have time to network and follow up. I'm sure all the panelists will be happy to answer questions individually. What I'd like to do, though, is just to take, we've got less than 2 minutes. If the panelists have one last thought to share with our audience, we would welcome that. Peter, we'll start with you. Last goes first, and it doesn't have to be about finance.
Thank you for being here. My last words were directing in an area where I am on my way, and I would appreciate to have any support for the things we do, especially with KSU. We signed a 5-year Memory of Understanding to get young people from the United States, students, to places in Europe, to make them more familiar with Europe than they are right now. And this is just an issue we try to manage with a lot of volumina. So, and volumina means we need money. So just to have to do that. So if you have any money, I'm ready to collect. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. OPIC probably has that money, right?
So I just, last words are, our home countries, originally Pakistani, our home countries are the fastest growing in the world right now. When my parents came here in the 70s, that wasn't the case, and they were coming here for a better life. But now in my generation, the whole world has turned this direction towards our home countries, and there's a lot of opportunity there, and we should be part of that growth story. We shouldn't turn a blind eye to it. So it's important to take the education that we've developed here in the Western world and turn it around and use the infrastructure that's built to support these types of projects in our home countries and do it effectively. You're having an impact on the ground and where you're from, and also bettering the lives of people. So turn our attention back to Asia. So.
Thank you.
I think on behalf of the Georgia Ports Authority, I just want to say thank you. When we and Curtis Foltz, my boss, and my counterparts travel around the state and other places, we're always received well, and we thank you for the positive attitude toward the port. That's not the case for all ports, and we appreciate that. It means a lot to us, and it helps us want to do more, not only for the community, but make sure we facilitate trade. And we know that our success has come from Asia, and we have tied our hitch to that, and we're going to continue in that path moving forward. Thank you.
So I'll end with the one bullet, the last bullet on my slide that I didn't have time for, and that is the commitment that's required to continuing learning. And it's more relevant now than it was for me when I started my career. When I started my career in cellular, I had about a 20-page handbook, and it explained cellular networks and how they're designed and architected, and the basic infrastructure. And that carried me through the last 10 years of my career. Things are changing, and they're changing again at a radical pace. And it's going to be very difficult for us to keep up with that pace of change. And if you talk to people that I think are really smart, I mentioned Sebastian from Udacity, and you ask him, what do you think the shelf life is of an advanced degree from a very, high institution? So even Kennesaw, and it's not pointing the finger at Kennesaw, this is more a function of what's going on around us. He'd say it's about 4 or 5 years. And that means that we're going to have to continue to invest in learning to keep pace with the pace of change. So that means for me, surrounding myself with people that are a lot smarter than me. And we should never be ashamed to do that. I do that all the time. It means that we're going to have to spend time with trade associations and magazines and networking. So I think for me to be successful in my job, and then also globally, whether it's Asia or anywhere, that's something that we're just going to have to do, and we need to recognize the environment that we're in. So with that, I thank you very much for the opportunity for me to come and speak, and also on behalf of AT&T.
And I think that's a nice segue. It's a nice segue segueing into the networking phase, and I ask you please join me in thanking our panelists. And guess what? I'll turn it over to May for further directions.